Hi, welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Penelope.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are going to talk about toys.
All right. So on this episode of Pegwarmers, we're taking over.
Yes, we're taking over. Sorry.
It's a little weird for being on the side.
How is it over there?
Yeah, how you
being
like it
in a
over there?
passenger seat of your own car.
Yeah, you're riding instead of driving the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Yes,
riding in
you're
the
riding.
bus.
All right.
We have taken over because we won
Bingo.
Pegwarmers Bingo.
While we were
the
away.
inaugural edition.
Yes.
If you guys have not seen previous episodes, we shot an episode where Penelope and Justin told us all about their road trip, and we got to hear about the final piece of the bingo board, which was Pizza Face.
Yep.
From
Amazing.
TMNT.
Pizza Face. Thanks to our friends at Roma Collectibles for Pizza Face.
Yeah, he won us the honor
Yes.
of
I like this seat.
You get to
I
be
gotta
in the
say.
big chair.
Yeah, I don't know how this came about, but I'm about it.
my
I'm
captain.
about it. Yeah, I like it.
So today we brought our Dungeons and Dragons collection.
Yes. So Justin brought his toy collection. I brought some choice stuff from my book and ephemera collection.
Before we get into that,
yeah.
there's a isn't there like, or do we just make it up as we go
Yeah,
along?
there's like a way of doing this.
You guys
right?
are in charge, but I would suggest to the DM maybe that we talk about news first.
Okay, let's talk about news.
So news, D&D news. Oh, WizKids. I know you're really excited about the WizKids toys. Why don't
My
we talk about
pre-orders
that? Yeah.
So WizKids, which is basically NECA, just introduced, and we've been waiting forever for new Dungeons and Dragons toys. Like every toy line from the 80s has been redone so far, right? There's been Silverhawks have been announced, Thundercats have been redone, but new Super 7 Thundercats are coming. He-Man has been done over and over and over again.
More than a few times.
G.I. Joe.
few times.
Finally, in the 6-inch scale, WizKids, who is a division of NECA, it's like
Yeah.
their gaming edition, are
Okay.
doing 6-inch D&D based on the LJN, specifically right now,
So excited.
Warduke and Grimsword,
Yes.
which are the two.
The two baddest guys.
Yeah.
What's funny,
So cool.
if you think about like G.I. Joe Classified, they didn't start out with like they didn't do like original Storm Shadow first.
Right.
They made us all wait for like the really good
I can
ones.
tell you too.
Exactly.
So they're starting with the hammers.
They're
here.
starting with the hammers,
Yeah.
man. They're going out full guns a-blazing.
And it's interesting because you would think they might do like a hammer and then maybe somebody that's a little bit
Right.
second tier because they want to get you excited but still have somebody great for the next wave.
They're starting off with a bang.
Yeah, and-
So Hasbro Pulse, I think last year or the year before, did do that Drist figure.
Yeah, but that's not based on
But
the
it's
LJN.
not based on the LJN.
Although it is D&D.
It is D&D, which a lot of people were excited about. I don't know how well it actually sold, but it must have done well enough that they're branching out and trying other things.
Yeah, see, Drist isn't hammering on that 80s nostalgia thing.
not for toy nostalgia.
Are we saying it right?
I think it's Drizzt.
Drizzt.
We actually went through this when the toy came out to make sure we were saying it right because we didn't want to be jerks, and I don't remember what it was. Drizzt. I believe it's Drizzt.
I don't even.
I'm not sure I can weigh in on the
I never
pronunciation.
played any of the
I
that
was
era.
I was a Dragonlance girl, not a Forgotten Realms girl. So I was more like, give me my Racelins and my Tanuses and Lorana and Drizzt and Guinevere can
Death
be over
Sturm.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're really
So
cutting it
we're getting
here.
deep. Well, it's D&D. Let's get deep with D&D.
Well, real quick with those figures, do you think have they? You said it's a pre-order
Yeah.
through WizKids, like
Yep.
through their website.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I knew that they had released images. I didn't realize that is the window closed.
I don't know if the window's closed.
I
I got
don't
on it. I just
think
I
so.
saw it.
Look at it,
Had
yeah.
to do it.
They announced it. And like there was there was like 2 days worth of maybe like what could that be,
I saw
and
the
then all of a
tease,
sudden
and then
Yeah.
news was
it
out.
came out of nowhere, and we were all super excited, and everybody just went crazy pre-ordering.
Yeah, I don't know if I doubt it's any kind of
Limited run.
limited
Yeah,
edition or anything
that's
like
true.
that.
They're beautiful.
They're
The
beautiful. I mean,
sculpts
they
are absolutely
nailed
gorgeous.
it
Yeah.
right out of the door. Again, comparing to G.I. Joe Classified. I know a lot of us, I can't speak for every collector, but a lot of us really wanted it to hearken to the G1, the V1, the original molds. And they really didn't. They were a little more stylized for the video game. And I know I was tepid on it
Yeah.
at first. Well, not with this D&D.
They went more like the Master Universe Classics route, where like it is what you imagined that toy as a kid looking like.
They are
In your brain.
absolutely
Totally.
beautiful.
As a kid.
Like Masterpiece Transformers.
Yep.
Everybody thinks that Masterpiece Optimus Prime looks like G1 Optimus Prime. Anybody who has like a fond remembrance who hasn't actually held a G1 Optimus Prime, which is not at all anything like the cartoon. Well, many of them are like that.
I remember them saying, like, some of the guys that worked on the Motu Classics line, they would have them at Toy Fair, or not Toy Fair, at like Comic-Con, and people would walk by and be like, I had every single one of those when I was a kid. And they'd be like,
No, you
not
did
these,
not.
not
No,
these.
you
And
did
they'd be
not.
like, yes, I did. I had them.
Your imagination
Right.
did.
Yeah. Right.
We get that in the store. People see a Masterpiece MP10 and they're like, oh, that was my Optimus Prime.
And he's this tall.
Look, talking to their wife. Look, hon, I had that Optimus
no, you
Prime.
did not.
No. No. You had this Optimus
Listen,
Prime.
you were this big when it came out, so maybe
Right.
you feel like it was bigger, but
Yeah.
it was actually.
So they nailed
this
it.
big.
We're super excited for that.
I mean, they're absolutely beautiful.
D&D, I want to say resurgence, but it really never went away. It's the 80s.
It
it's not
didn't, but
resurgence.
think
it did come around.
I think it did get a little bit more, because all the nerdy stuff has become less stigmatized. I feel like it has become a little less stigmatized. Like it's
Certainly.
there's a lot of
I agree.
celebrities that,
Oh my
that
God.
do D&D.
that
and that's
Yes.
Joe
Right.
Bottericello
Oh,
guy,
stop.
or
Don't even go there.
good-looking, handsome
Vin
model
Diesel.
guy.
Vin Diesel. Let's talk about Vin
Henry
Diesel.
Cavill,
Yeah.
like-
Oh, let's talk about Henry Cavill, please.
And that really helps kill the stigma, though, of like, oh,
Totally.
a bunch of people in their
Plus,
basement.
I think
you know.
Hasbro buying Wizards of the Coast certainly helped, because when Wizards of the Coast bought TSR, I feel like that was actually bad for D&D in the beginning there. But now it's coming back around. 5th edition is big. More people are playing D&D than they have in decades.
Stranger Things, I think, had a big impact with the younger kids playing.
That was
Certainly.
a big deal.
you know,
Definitely.
that got a lot of teenagers back into it,
Yep.
or to
it's,
start.
Yeah.
It's cool now, and it was
Yeah.
never cool, and it's cool now. So
Right.
like the hipster part of me is like, that's my game.
Well, you say it was never cool. Yeah, I guess it was never cool in like to the cool people, but it was always cool to me.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
amazing.
same.
Yeah.
But I was never
Yeah.
cool.
No, that's exactly what I mean.
I had to wait a long time
Now
to be cool.
Jocks, like you just said, Joe Manganiello is playing, and
that's
he's
his name.
he's on the cover of like GQ magazine and like Muscle and Fitness, and
Yeah.
and in my day, those guys weren't playing D&D; they were jamming us in lockers.
In the 80s, nobody playing D&D looked like a D&D character.
No, yes, it's exact. Unless trolls, maybe I don't know. I'm thinking of some guys I dated, but no.
I could pass for a like a
Half-orc?
bugbear,
You look nothing like a bugbear.
shambling mound.
No, gelatinous cube.
Wow.
No, stop. What? They're see-through. You can't even see them.
What do you want to talk about now?
Yeah, what's next on the list of things we're supposed to remember to do?
New to the collection would be the
Oh.
next thing, DM.
All right,
Oh.
I'm really excited. This is all me. I'm really excited about this one, guys. So I belong to a couple of D&D like forums on Facebook where people are always like just auctioning off stuff and whatnot. And a guy came in one day and said, "Hey, my girlfriend found this in like her ex-husband's stuff after he passed away. We want to auction it off. We're not really sure what we have, but here it is." And he showed off a bunch of what looked like prototype like copies of things from a Colorforms adventure set. Just like, what are they called? Chromolins, like overlays for
Like
printing
transparency type
Yeah,
and
things.
transparencies,
and
photographs,
things like that. And I have to be honest, I didn't really know what I was bidding on because he didn't even know what he had.
Now, to premise this a little bit, toy art, art from any sort of production art from any sort of toys is very tough.
Yes.
We've shown some off before. We're big fans of it because we're nostalgineers and we love the history. D&D art specifically
It does not exist.
is impossible.
Yeah.
A lot of it got thrown away when TSR was closing, and then what made it out went into some collectors' hands, some big high-end collectors' hands,
And they're never going to see
and it never sees the light of day.
unless they ever make this. The one specific guy wants to do a museum, and I hope one day he does.
That'd be amazing.
But in the meantime, it's just
It's
somewhere
just hoarded,
Yeah,
and he pays money for it that regular people just can't pay.
yeah. And he eats it all up, so it just doesn't.
But
it
some
never
of the
comes
stuff
out.
made it out of TSR, specifically Colorforms, if you want to speak on this.
Yeah. So again, this guy didn't even know what he had, and his pictures were not the clearest. But I decided, you know what? It's impossible to find any production D&D stuff of any kind. I'm going to bid on this and see where it goes. And it went for very low. I was surprised, and I managed to snag
Well,
it.
no, but you didn't know there was actually original art.
Well,
in it.
you're getting ahead of me
So
now.
it went for very low compared to what you
It,
would have
it,
paid.
it went
Right.
for low based on what I actually received.
Right, not for what you thought was there.
I didn't know what was there, and I kind of was rolling
You
the
bid
dice.
fair.
Yes, for what I thought was there.
Rolled the dice.
I rolled the dice. I see what I did there.
Good.
So when
sit on that one.
so when I actually got the package, I was shocked to realize that there was actually original art.
Wow.
Back there behind you guys, it's an original watercolor and ink painting of the actual Color Forms playmat. I'll take it out here and show it off.
Man, where's the box art? See, that's
So
the kind of thing that probably was still a TSR.
Yes. Well, TSR probably never got this stuff.
Because this is a licensed thing, so it might not have even made it there. It might have just been approved.
That's exactly it. There's a good chance that the artist, it was just an in-house Color Forms guy who did this, which is probably one of the reasons that it managed to survive.
Yeah, it's not Jeff Easley.
Yeah, the TSR artists like Elmore and Easley, they got all of their stuff back. So
you gotta wonder how the person that had it
there. You guys can see that on
got
camera.
a hold of it, like, did they work for Color Form? Did they work for
it came out of the right town.
Or they were a collector?
She obviously did some research.
Okay.
Yeah, it came from a gentleman who lived near the Color Forms headquarters at the time. So it's definitely legit.
Yeah.
It came with so much paperwork. I didn't bring all that stuff.
In-house stuff.
So much in-house notes, other sketches, transparencies for the box art, hand drawing, like all kinds of stuff behind the scenes. But that is the coup de grace there. And
So
it's
finding original
really
is
really
cool.
cool.
So
I wasn't expecting it to be there. I was blown away.
she was so stoked.
I was freaking out.
Now, did you follow up and see if they had any other Color Form memorabilia?
I did. I said, "Do you have any other toy stuff?" And he said, "No." Like I said, this came from his girlfriend's ex-husband who had passed away's storage unit.
So just like I'm sure around Ohio, Kenner stuff coming out and being sold. This probably happened around the Color Forms. Somebody bought something at a yard sale when somebody passed away. Or
It
something
was
like that.
it was a storage unit auction.
Okay.
Which is where they got it from originally.
Who knows?
And
crazy.
it came with the original receipt, like for the person who picked it up, like the courier. It had all of that stuff and everything. All the addresses checked out. It's definitely legit. But
Love the
it's
toy
so-
history of it.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And it's I'm never going to own an original Larry Elmore painting. He did all the book art.
Well.
You know.
You never. Don't say never.
I mean,
but
if I become a
When you say that,
bazillionaire.
you mean like a production. piece of
Production,
art.
yeah.
You can commission Larry Elmore right now to
I've met him at conventions. I could have gotten sketches
Right.
and stuff like that.
But a production
Piece from like 1989. That's not in my future. The fact that this fell into my lap was really cool, and it happened right before I literally got this the day before we left for our trip.
Wow.
So it's definitely new to the collection. Definitely.
Where's the Hector
cool.
Garrido art at? Nobody
I wish.
knows.
Well, Hasbro's kept a lot of it. They
Yes.
actually destroyed some of it to do the alternate
Second, yes.
versions. The Night
Night
Force things
Force.
were painted right over, which
That's-
How about that?
is kind of a killer. Like, couldn't they just make a
That hurts.
copy
So
of it
there'll
and paint
never
over
be a
that?
Sky Striker piece because the Night
Boomer
Boomer
was
was
painted
painted
right
over
over
it. Same with the Whale and
And I think the Whale is one of the
That's
real
insane.
ways that it was like confirmed that's what happened, because when you look at the Night Striker box, I'm sorry, it's the Night Ray box.
Okay.
The Night Ray box, in some of the little slits, you can see the Dreadnoks inside this G.I. Joe
terrible.
vehicle because they just didn't paint out the little windows.
Wow.
yes.
That
like
is
a weird-
insane.
Yeah.
So
or
much.
maybe they're trapped in there.
Yeah.
So much TSR art didn't make it or manage to all go to one place. So it's just cool. I don't
We
know.
recently
I'm proud.
talk about art again. Like we like going off in little tangents. It
No,
doesn't
of
have to, we
course.
don't have
No,
to be
really?
D&D. You know. Let's roll the dice on this one here.
Oh, stop.
I had to throw it in there.
No.
We recently were at a convention sitting between Larry Hama and Ron Rudett. And I was talking to Ron about in-house Hasbro art because he did all the pre-production
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
He kept a lot of his stuff, which is really smart. But he said Kirk Bazigian
Bazillion?
has a treasure trove.
I'm sure he does.
And he's never let any of it out. Or really, once in a while, he posts like a small
Something little, yeah.
memo or something.
Yeah.
But apparently, he has a treasure trove of stuff. So hopefully, someday he does something with that where we get to see. We're G.I. Joe fans. I mean, we're fans of everything, but I know we connect on the Joe stuff.
I have a sketch from Ron and a sketch from Larry, both of Beachhead, my favorite G.I. Joe.
Awesome.
That's cool. You
I
got a
have a
sketch from
wall of-
Ron.
Yeah.
Did you have to commission or did he do it
I
at the
did.
show?
I commissioned it.
Yeah, he doesn't do them at shows.
Yeah, I wasn't
He-
sure how long he's been doing that.
One of the guys that's kind of big in the community of preserving a lot of the G.I. Joe art and stuff, one year around Christmas time, put out like an email on a smaller G.I. Joe collector group and was like, hey, Ron is, got X number of slots open. Here's the deal. It's this much for black and whites, this much for color, you know,
Yep.
whatever you want.
Oh, I know the prices.
And-
I commissioned something.
Yeah, and so my dad gives me money a lot of years for Christmas present. You know,
Sure.
just like get what
He
you
doesn't know
want.
what to
And
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I like to do is get something like that isn't just something everyone has.
Special.
You know, like
That's awesome.
you know, in your collection, I can buy a GI Joe and it's the same as everyone else's. But
Yeah.
if I paid a guy
right
that
there
worked
with
on the
you.
brand to draw this thing, and when I look at this wall of beachheads at my house, my dad gave me those.
I have a
Oh, that's
I have a
awesome.
similar wall of Cobra Commanders.
Okay.
Herb Trimpe, Larry Hama. But I wanted we sponsored at this con Super Jersey.
Super Jersey. Yeah.
A thing called Joe Row.
Okay.
Where it was us, Larry, and Ron. Right,
And our logo
we
fit
didn't.
right
Who were
in.
we? We were just nerds
Yeah.
nerding out the GI Joe and talking to Larry and Ron. So I was like, "What do I do?" Because Ron invented the characters.
Right.
I'm sorry, we're talking about D&D. We're talking about GI Joe now.
He invented the look of all the characters.
Right.
yes. And then
Right.
Larry,
Larry breathed life into
populated.
Gave them personality.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, what can I do where I have them both here? So I figured I was going to have Ron do a sketch, and I didn't know Ron didn't do sketches on the premises because
On
Ron's
site.
still a really good artist.
Yeah.
He's
he takes his
amazing.
time. He doesn't just blow out
Right.
con sketches. I was going to have Larry write a file card.
Okay.
So instead, and I know we know Larry pretty well, so I know Larry will do this for me. Having Ron commission me as a Dreadnought, and
Nice.
Larry's going to write the file card.
Very cool.
It's such a good idea.
All I
I
could
wish
think
I had
of
thought
to
of
do
it.
Like
to
it.
bridge the two guys and have my own personal Joe.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because I can't cosplay. What am I going to? Can I be Nemesis Enforcer? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like who am I?
You could be
Do I look like
Globulus.
Falcon?
You could be Globulus.
All right. So anyway, back to D&D.
So yeah, that's new to my collection. I don't
That's amazing. That's
Our.
really cool.
Our
Oh,
collection.
wait. No. The toys are yours.
Oh, it didn't used to be that way.
No, and all the
Before this happened, the toys used to be ours.
You're right.
no, it's what do you have anything new from your collection you want to talk about? The helmet's pretty new.
I mean, yeah, but the carded War Duke is fairly new. I forget
Graded.
where I got that. Graded.
You got it from
Billy
Billy.
Galaxy.
Billy Galaxy.
nice.
Yeah.
Another one of the
Toy store near you.
He's
folks.
another label mate, we like to call him.
Yes, he's actually a producer of the series.
Yeah, super nice guy. Shame he got like robbed out there in Portland and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I've heard some crazy stories where he like went after people that robbed him with a gun and like got in an altercation. Listen, I don't want to throw anything out there, but
But you are.
yeah. And I started talking before I should have said anything.
The trouble was like the
reined
police
myself
couldn't
in.
intervene because there was like no evidence.
Yeah.
But he had cameras and it was
And you
just
know, doing what we do
craziness.
to be taken advantage of, it's so stressful. There's no like.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. I mean, we don't have a 401k in our
Anyway,
business. Or
Billy is a
anything.
huge Dungeons and
D&D.
Dragons collector.
Speaking of art,
He owns the
he
box
owns
art.
the box art for the Fortress of
Fortress of
Fangs.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
He is
cool.
not the collector we were talking about either. He probably got that under the radar of that guy. There's one specific guy who buys it all.
Okay.
yeah.
And
He's
in a
foreign,
lot of
actually.
collector groups, there is that one guy that
Yeah,
snags
he got
everything. Right.
piles of money.
He
and,
got
you know,
all any of the paintings that have come up anytime recently for auction. He's gotten them all.
Yeah.
There was recently an auction of animation cells from the cartoon show.
nice.
They were all lost in a fire, so the only ones I had left were ones that were from Gary Gygax's personal collection.
The ones he had to approve.
Yeah, like
You know, they got
stuff
sent to
stuff
him.
he approved that
Okay.
he just
So,
never
like,
sent
model
back.
sheets, basically.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
Very cool.
This guy got 90% of those.
Wow.
We tried to get some.
We did, and
but it went
was
way over our pay grade
yeah,
real fast.
Real
I can
fast.
imagine.
Because my favorite incarnation and what brought me into D&D was the 80s cartoon, which we were talking earlier about the action figures, the toys. These weren't really on my radar as a kid. They're right in the era, right?
Yeah.
A friend of mine had a Fortress of Fangs up the street. My Terradrome was cooler.
Same deal. They
You know,
they weren't really on my radar either.
I always thought War Duke was amazingly cool.
of course.
I wasn't even aware how wide the breadth of the collection was. But let me tell you, if they were figures of the cartoon,
Yeah.
I would have had.
Or
every
if
figure.
they were figures of characters from the books and such.
But I wasn't reading the books as a kid.
I was reading the books as a kid. I was 7 years old reading that stuff and playing the games. And if they had been characters like more from that,
Yeah. Well, they
I
are
would've been more-
characters. Well, the creatures are all from the books.
yeah. Well, the creatures are all.
Which I didn't bring any
yeah.
of the PVCs or bendies.
Right.
We could have filled this entire table.
Yeah, the creatures are all from like the manuals and whatnot.
Right.
But like the characters, like those Dragonlance characters I mentioned before, if they had made figures of those,
Well, Wrinkle Run,
Ringle Run.
isn't he from something?
So some of the characters were featured in a module, but they were never technically Ringle Run is on the cover of the first edition Player's Handbook. Technically, that wizard with the long flowy beard is Ringle Run.
Okay, Kellic was in the cartoon.
Kellic was
Some
in
of
the cartoon.
these guys,
Strong
Some
Art
of
was
them
in the
did, but
cartoon.
they were like,
It was cameos.
I feel like that's what kind of the weakness was. Is like if you really want to market those toys, they need to be reoccurring characters, even if they're not in every episode. But they need to show up.
Yes.
Every so often.
Like give
Other
me the
than
Avenger.
Tiamat,
Right.
the five-headed dragon,
Yes.
who was in the opening sequence and stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Always the big bad. But yeah, my exposure to D&D was initially the game, and then the books from there, and then later the toys.
The cartoon was my first
And the
exposure.
cartoon.
I was aware of the toys, and then I played the game. My parents thought it was like the devil's witchcraft.
That's-
I'm an '80s baby.
Yeah,
and
same.
it was Satan's game.
Yeah, I had some friends that like were not allowed to play because of stuff.
Because of Geraldo Rivera.
Our mom was pretty cool. My sister and I played heavily with our father.
Okay.
And mom was cool because it was okay with dad, so it was probably fine. But like we had one like demonology game, and she was like, that has to go. But everything else was cool because we're just nerds in a basement. We're not hurting anybody.
Well, if you look at the cover of
all of them.
what's the cover with the red demon on the cover?
We have this conversation like once a week. Which one? There's so many.
Man,
So this is the cover.
Is.
This is the cover of the DMG as well. This painting was used for that. That's pretty creepy. There's this creepy guy like opening creepy doors to where.
Yeah, but you know, if you that is not Satanism.
That's not. No, absolutely. The complete book of Necromancers, which I brought.
There's no art to that.
That's pretty creepy though. If you got mom, this is a really rare book. That's why I brought
Okay.
it. I just brought
I
like
was
a
wondering
little
why she brought it, too.
smattering.
Okay.
It's just I brought a little smattering of like some really high end stuff. This is like $120 book
Wow.
now. It's crazy because it came out a little bit closer to the end of the run, and it got less.
I brought my player's guide from when I was a kid.
Yes,
That's
I
awesome.
love it.
I've had
Second
this for a
edition,
long time.
baby.
I had this and like the Creature Compendium Volume 1, like that, and that's to me like paging through that, reading about all the monsters. I
Dude.
loved that.
It was sometimes cooler to page through the stuff and read about them than it was to actually play. Like just getting versed.
You're
in,
bringing up literally like my favorite thing. This is my favorite D&D book ever. It's Deities and Demigods. It's literally just an encyclopedia of all the different gods from all the different pantheons. And most of them are like, this is Egyptian, for example.
Right.
Most of them are just things
Real
that you would
world.
find on Earth. But the art, just looking at the art is just fantastic.
Well, you want to talk about things from the real world or things were already written. They got sued
Yep.
multiple times,
yeah.
and they had to do different printings by Cthulhu, Lovecraft.
Yeah, this
Okay.
version of the book does have the Cthulhu mythos in it, and they got sued. They said they had permission to include that stuff. They got sued by H.P. Lovecraft's estate because they did not have permission for that stuff.
So further printings of that,
Had to
didn't
remove
have.
They had to remove
So then
it.
it becomes collectible.
Right.
Right now, the printings that have the Lovecraftian stuff,
Yeah.
is a more
And there's
collectible
multiple
version.
versions because the first one they just put it out and like, okay, it's fine, we'll be fine. And then they got some shit, so they're like, well, let's do a thank you. So they thanked H.P. Lovecraft and also the Elric guy who they included. And then
Elric,
after,
like the comic book Elric.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yep. Michael Moorcock.
Moorcock. Okay.
Yeah, that was in here too.
I'm not gonna say that 3 times
And
fast.
and then they were like, well, we'll just get away by putting a thank you in there. That's the version I have here. So it still includes that content that should have been cut, but there's a thank you, which that'll
Thought
be
that
fine.
would credit them enough, yeah.
That wasn't enough. So after that, they had to take it out.
So the toy line did not tie into the gaming at all.
Not really.
Not in any thoughtful, concise way. You couldn't pull the figures out and play the game. Like it had nothing really to do with each other. I forgot to bring a Fortress of Fangs. One of the best 80s play
I
sets
know.
there
There's
is.
a lot of stuff we didn't bring. We could have literally filled up the truck.
Yeah. The toys are. We were speaking about scale earlier.
Right.
I guess like the humans have their own scale, and then there's some like titans who are taller, and then the young male titan, and then you got the smaller dwarf, and you have male elf.
I do like that they were able
I
to scale
love
these
that they're in
guys
scale.
because that's a big part of D&D is that there are these different races and things. But
do
the
love
scale gets really weird when you jump from these guys to Tiamat or when you jump to those PVC monsters.
Correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate
makes
as
no
well.
sense.
Well, what's cool is not many people realize this. There are smaller PVC figures that aren't articulated. There's a couple
it's
sitting
only
there in front of
An inch or
Tiamat.
two.
They scale with Tiamat pretty well.
Right.
And some of the PVC or
Bendies.
creatures.
Yeah.
Or even we brought a really rare wind up called a cave fisher.
Cave fishers in the front there.
Some people didn't even think they existed for a long time. There's so many. There's so few examples out there. I think there were supposed to be 3 wind ups.
Yeah, a cave fisher. Oh, the Tarrasque was one of them, and I can't remember the third one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
me
They're
on the
so
spot.
rare you just never see them. We saw the most recent cave fisher we saw sell on eBay went for over $1,000. Just a loose.
Yeah,
They were only sold regionally.
regionally. Yeah,
Okay.
They
Midwest.
weren't across the country.
It was
so
like I think it
only
was like a test run.
a test market.
Yeah,
Then they just pulled them. So I think
Yeah.
only a few hundred made it out, and I don't know what survived since then.
nobody knows.
So our then you have the Steeds, and we were talking earlier about the Steeds where you plug the figure in,
Right. It's like a tauntaun.
right, and then
It's
the legs
pretty
are
clever.
molded on the sides.
It's pretty clever. It's very smart.
There's no split belly steed though.
My exposure to D&D as a kid was the cartoon first, and I was very young watching that, but really enjoyed it. Like it just the monster aspect of it, not really knowing that there was a game that went to it, but the characters they created, those kids, are very memorable in the same sense that like the Ninja Turtles have different personalities, or like any good team, the Voltron Force or
Yep.
the Power Rangers, whatever, you have these different personalities that work together well. And I loved that show and almost basically forgot about it. And then like in late elementary school, got introduced to the actual game and was like, oh yeah, that cartoon show, and played Dungeons and Dragons, sort of our own version of Dungeons and Dragons. We didn't follow
Everybody
every little thing.
kind of does that.
We
Any
had
good DM.
yeah, we had homebrew, a lot
Yeah.
of rules we made up, and use the rules as a guide to
Because it's really
have
about
fun.
having fun and
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretending.
and being
So,
creative and using your imagination.
If you play with a DM who is super, super stringent,
It's not fun.
it's not fun.
Right.
You got to be a little bit loose.
Yeah.
And you got to laugh once in a while and have fun with it.
If you're not laughing, you're doing something.
The cartoon's great because before you're introduced to the actual playing D&D, the tropes, the archetypes of the characters are what you're playing in D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So that's super cool that they did that. Like even I didn't realize it as a kid watching that, oh, the barbarian is strong and I think another thing that lends itself really well to that cartoon is the strength of the voice acting in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
It was very good.
Listen, it's for kids.
Yeah.
You go and watch it now. It's sometimes hard to watch.
All of the shows that we loved as kids are a little hard to watch now and then. I think it holds up pretty well.
Compared to some others.
Yeah, compared to say He-Man, which
Avenger
again
was
I love.
dark.
Avenger was dark.
Yeah.
He was scary, and Tiamat was
Peter Cullen.
Yeah, I know.
How cool is that?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And Frank Welker's in it, you know.
He's uni.
Uni.
Oh!
Oh, stop! Please don't do your Uni voice. So, little fun fact: the show was canceled obviously before it could finish, but
Right.
you were supposed to find out that Venger was the Dungeon Master's son. That was like the big reveal. That was supposed to be a big deal. But
There were episodes that were written but never shot, but I think that
Yeah.
they storyboarded them. I think
They've
you can
done that, yeah.
find like
There's
and
somebody,
they've had the voice actors like recreate.
Willie Ames from Charles in Charge.
there's somebody. I
Yes.
think there's actually a whole video on YouTube where somebody recreated the final episode
Yep.
using like clips
Stills
out of
and stuff?
context,
Oh,
like
that's cool.
actual
Yeah, I've
footage
seen
of like
that.
they just have a close up of
haven't
one
seen
character
it.
talking,
Yeah.
and then maybe they animated themselves a few segments or whatever, but they kind of recreated what that episode
that's
might have been
interesting.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else do we touch on here on
what's the
Pegwarmers?
next?
What else did we touch on Pegwarmers? Well, we went through the news, new to the collection. Do we want to talk about a Pegwarmer itself?
Oh, sure.
We've got I brought I kind of tried to bring like some of like my higher end stuff, and you guys can see it behind me and like here on the table, but I also brought like one of my favorite things, which I think is kind of considered a peg warmer. My collection of D&D books is like I have so many books. I've kind of had to start doing other like side stuff.
Gotcha.
So I started also
Here's the thing about D&D that's different from other kind of like specific toy franchises. D&D runs the gamut of media.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
That goes without saying.
So you can be a
anything.
D&D collector and just do the toys, just do the gaming, just do what you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
Just do video games. And without the gaming system of Dungeons and Dragons, the rolling the dice, the math behind it, we wouldn't have RPGs.
Right.
It really all comes
Dude,
there'd be no
like,
Skyrim.
If you like Legend of
there'd
Zelda,
be no mechanics for it.
Right.
Yeah, if you like Legend of Zelda, if you like Skyrim, if you like World of Warcraft, any of that stuff, you have Gary Gygax and crew to thank for that.
Totally. That kind of RPG
yeah.
gaming and the math behind the
stats and stuff like that.
They put it into video games, and every video game we love is that.
And that all stemmed from wargaming and tabletop gaming and stuff like that.
Yeah, they were all playing like
Napoleonic Wars.
Which interests me not at all. I mean,
it's funny. It's the same mechanics, but as soon as you do swords and dragons instead of swords and cannons, it's way more interesting to me personally.
Yeah, well, it's like we say that like fantasy football is the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It really is. You're just using football players instead of
those guys
dragons
don't realize
and
that they're
elves.
playing Dungeons and Dragons with real people. So that being said, I just wanted to pregame.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like
if
if you look around this table, I mean, I have got a set of modeling clay. I've got miniatures you can paint. I've got a board game, a video game, computer game.
a lot of I've here.
Well, they're mine. You have the game. You have the toys. I have everything.
I get to carry it all.
You do get to carry it. What else? I mean, I've got prototype dice up there. I've got a belt buckle. If you're a D&D person, there's anything you could possibly want could somehow fit into it. But that being said, in the 80s when we were kids, Choose Your Own Adventure books were super hot.
Yes.
I think we've talked about them actually before on the show briefly. I collect them maniacally.
Okay.
And TSR did their own.
She collects collections. Let's be honest. I collect
throwing me
like
out
3 things.
under the bus
she
here.
just collects.
I collect stuff that I loved when I was a kid. And
she loved a lot of
stop.
stuff.
We've had this discussion before, Kevin. I wasn't a rich person. We didn't have a lot when I was a kid, but I never didn't have books. So a lot of the things that I loved as a kid and a lot of the things I had and still have were books. So I still have my D&D collection. I still have my Choose Your Own Adventure collection. And I still have my Endless Quest books. Now, Endless Quest books were basically TSR's D&D versions of Choose Your Own Adventure. I got the majority of my collection from KB Toys, 2 for $1. I don't know if that counts as a peg warmer or not.
It's close enough.
I feel like it does.
So. I actually bought some of the exact same ones.
Yep.
For a buddy of mine, the guy that kind of got me into D&D, that was sort of my DM as a kid, he liked Choose Your Own Adventure books. I could never figure them out. I would just die right away.
I had some Indiana Jones ones as a kid.
I would
always make the bold choice, which gets you killed.
Yeah, I don't want to reread things though. Like once I read it,
you gotta
have
a bookmark. It's a different book every time you read it, guys. Come on.
So I found a bunch of these actually at a dollar store.
Highly collectible now.
Well, this was years ago.
Okay.
Like we were probably in middle school maybe, but I stumbled upon a dollar store that had just hundreds of them. And those exact ones. Like I remember that blue cover and the green cover that you have there.
Oh, that's cool.
But I bought him one of every one they had and gave him to him for Christmas the one year.
Jealous. I bet
and
he
they
loved it.
lend themselves to collecting. They're numbered.
Yes.
They're numbered. The cover art of the early ones, again, back to that Larry Elmore, the cover art is absolutely gorgeous, which is what I love
and all
about
that
them.
art. Think about how much art. Every cover. Yeah. In every book, there are illustrations of all the creatures. There's so much art out there, and good luck finding it.
So much of it, like we talked about earlier, it just went, under the desk. It fell behind a table, and it got thrown away. Nobody cared. It was disposable.
So, did R.L. Stine write those?
So he wrote a few later on. He's famous for his Goosebumps books, but he started out with Choose Your Own Adventure, Edward Packard, and all of those. I think he wrote one of these. Don't quote me on that. He may have used a pseudonym. Because a couple of the people that wrote for D&D, like Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, wrote some of these, and some of them they actually used pseudonyms because they didn't want to be known.
There's G.I. Joe Choose Your Own Adventure books.
I do know
they're
that.
not. Stop. Copyright. Hell. They're not Choose Your Own Adventure. They're Find Your Fate. Thank you.
Same idea. they're highly sought after.
One of my favorite
really cool.
Joe YouTubers, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, does on his live streams sometimes read those, and people in the chat get to pick which way we go.
Oh, that's
awesome.
So much
I had
fun.
that idea.
That's awesome.
That. Yeah,
he
really
does
fun.
that. It's great.
I love that.
788 for his tank.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. I think Hector Garrido did the cover art for those.
I believe so, yeah.
So good. God, the cover art's great.
Love to find some of that.
There's Choose Your Own Adventure. It kind of started it. Pick a Path, Find Your Fate.
Yep.
There's so many knockoffs.
Everybody had to get a different twist on that because it got copyrighted.
It did. But I collect all of them. But these are my favorite because two of my favorite things, D&D and Choose Pick a Path. I love them. But they were Pegwarmers. I got them at KB, 2 for $1.
Well, and I found them years later for $1 at the dollar store. So
probably
So
the
before
same
they started
era.
skyrocketing in value.
Oh, definitely.
It's funny how often that will happen. Something hits that clearance bin and either it becomes super common and it just never gains any value, or it like hits that bin and somehow magically shoots back up later.
Or the internet happened and created
Interest in something.
Well,
Yeah.
or there was
bit of
interest
all of
here
it.
and there, but they, the people in Idaho didn't know it was worth anything, so they were still selling them for $1. But
Right.
once everybody has access to everything, then they become
Yeah.
it becomes sought after.
Plus, like, if it wasn't for the internet, I wouldn't know that there were 7 other knockoff versions of these that I had to have. You know, TSR also did a version for littler kids that are bigger print and they're easier stories. I have to have all of those too. I didn't even know they existed as a kid. Now I gotta have them all.
About the coloring books.
Dude.
There's Dungeons and Dragons coloring
Yes,
books?
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
bring those. I didn't know it. I could have brought so much stuff.
Now, are they based on the...
Yes.
They're based
So they're
on
kind of
yes.
licensed like the color form.
No,
Yes.
different. I think
Oh no, they're
some are based on the
on
toys, and then I think 1 or 2 is based on the cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Well, no? I know they're based on the toys because I remember War
Definitely.
Duke and all them being in it.
So there are a few like Pick a Path style books based on the cartoon, but they were only available overseas. I have one of those.
Definitely
I love
based on
coloring
the
books.
toys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then there's like 4 regular size, coloring books, and
yeah,
then
and
there's
there's
like
one giant one.
Oh, yeah.
giant.
And there's some characters in
jumbo,
them.
yeah.
There's some characters in them that were never introduced as toys, but I think were supposed to
The
be.
toys only lasted 2 series.
Right.
They did 1 series, and then they introduced. LJN is really famous for the gimmick Battle-matic
Battle-matic.
thing.
Right,
They
for the
how many
Thundercats.
right. Well, they did it first with these guys.
Okay.
The second series, they redid most of the first series figures, but gave them a Battle-matic gimmick.
or the shield shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the newer second series guys also had a Battle-matic kind of thing going on, and they're hard. Second series guys are much more rare than first series guys. You can easily find a War Duke or a Strongheart, but finding them in the Battle-matic version is pretty tough.
That's
and then
the case for a lot of toy lines. The later stuff ends up being the harder
there's
stuff.
only 2 series. Like you talk about Mask or something, there was at least 3 regular series and then a really
Yeah.
hard 4th series.
Usually the last series is a little harder.
It is.
Part of the reason why it
went away.
went away.
Yeah.
Yep. And
the
they're
orders
less produced.
from the toy store weren't as good or whatever. And then,
Obviously, it was popular enough to elicit some KOs. If you
Yeah.
look in the front there, we have a War Duke in the middle, and then these 2 terribly
They're horrible.
produced knockoffs of a white one and a black one. The white one almost looks like he's made of soap.
Yeah.
He looks like he's kind of melting.
His head is kind of
I
translucent.
can't even tell you if they're error correct. We got them from a friend, Brian Stillman, who did the.
Eye of the Beholder, The Art of Dungeons and Dragons.
He's a huge Dungeons and Dragons guy.
Okay.
He's a pre-production collector. Had a great Dune collection. He also did the Star
Plastic
Wars.
Galaxy, the story of Star Wars
Yeah.
stories.
Oh, okay.
Right, he's a very knowledgeable nerd, great guy, and I got them from him, and he was like, I don't know nothing about him, and if he doesn't know,
Nobody knows.
because one day he came to the store and we were hanging out and talking about Voltron, he was like, "What is this?" And I had like a little weirdly colored. You know how they've done so many scale Voltrons.
Yeah.
Voltron's gone through so many, Matchbox and
LJN.
Panache
Panache.
Place and LJN. And he was like, I don't recognize this. Well, he went home and later that night sent me like 5 paragraphs of, this is from Rack Toy train station in Japan.
Okay.
There was 3 different versions of this, and you have the blue arm version. Like he really got into minutia and digging. So, if he couldn't find information,
if Brian
on those
couldn't
things,
figure out what they were, no one could ever.
well, no, I don't want to say that. No, not everybody knows everything.
Somebody
somewhere
bought it in the
maybe.
right place to know where it's from.
Yeah.
If you find a bootleg out of the package, though, good luck,
Good
because
luck.
there's
Good
no
luck.
trademark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's
why would they
nothing on it.
trademark it?
No.
Oh, please
Please
sue
come back
here.
and find us.
Yes.
Yes.
Please
Please
call
send
this
your lawyer.
number.
Please let your lawyer contact this
Yeah.
information.
No.
I
They're
can't even imagine
awful.
what they sold for.
Did you say he gave them to you? I'm pretty sure that was part of my birthday gift this year. I don't know.
Wait.
She's claiming everything.
Were the toys mine?
But they're, I don't know.
The KOs are not toys.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Something else.
Yeah,
Another
they're-
classification.
They're
No,
art. They're art.
They are toys.
They're art.
They're
They're art.
they're definitely toys. I don't know.
I brought a lot of other
I guess
weird
none
stuff.
of it's mine.
No, not really.
board games. I mean, like I said, D&D runs the gamut.
I brought the board game back there because it's kind of a Pegwarmer too. It's that horrible hyper reality VHS video.
Yeah, I remember
board
watching
game.
that VHS. My friend, my buddy Derek, who was my entry point to this, he had Dragon Strike and Hero Quest, and
the game
spend
itself
hours
is
playing
fine. The game itself is good, but the VHS is horrible. I hope you guys can actually edit in some of it in the video.
We'll try and
It's
grab a clip
bad.
somewhere.
It's so bad.
It's the guy's face, right?
Oh God, no,
What
no,
am I
no,
thinking of?
no! You're thinking of Nightmare, the board game, VHS board game.
yeah.
Dragon Strike. They've got the people like dressed in costumes.
Yes.
It's just goofy.
Oh,
It's
that's right.
horrible.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yep.
It's so bad. And there's like at least one like semi-famous in the past actor in it who's like just obviously at the end of his career. It's terrible. Wonderful terrible in the most wonderful way, of
Sylvester
course. No.
Sherman Helmsley.
No. All right. What else do we have on our list?
We're
there?
just in the main
Things-
topic, the LJN
Okay.
D&D toys. So
Yeah.
as a kid, I kind of mentioned, right? I saw the cartoon, a little too young for D&D to really understand it. So I didn't have any of the figures. Then a few years later, got into the game. So now I'm like interested in the bigger world that is D&D, and also old enough to like walk around the community yard sales and things like that. And so I start picking up stuff here and there. Especially like some of the monster PVCs, because those are instantly recognizable as that's a D&D monster, that's an orc, that's a bugbear, whatever.
To us that know, what's funny is you can still find them at a yard sale. People have no idea what they are.
No
They think
clue.
they're just
no clue.
cheap little PVCs.
Yeah.
So eventually I got both wizards, but they both had the black tunic on them, the black robes, and I was very confused because clearly one's a good guy and one's a bad guy, but
Yeah.
like when they're dressed the same, and if you peek under the robe, they kind of have the same like rag
Yes.
shorts.
Oh,
and
yeah,
rag
yeah.
underwear.
Yeah, like they're,
So I could never quite
they're
figure out.
undergarments.
Yes.
I could never quite figure out what the deal was with them.
The
What's
little
funny is if you look at their
sandals.
faces, Kellic definitely has the more, and I could speak on this because I'm a beardo. Kellic has the more
Beardo?
evil beard. It's a little pointier.
Yep.
And
I don't know
it's-
why that
He has
the
pointed
evil
ears
wizard
too, which is interesting.
is a little more kempt. It might be even more. It might come from Lord of the Rings.
It could be.
Saruman was a little more kempt
Right.
than
Gandalf was a little more
Gandalf.
woodsy.
I never really
Yeah.
thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the
There's
evil guys
influences
take
in-
care of themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, please, yes.
Sure.
As a matter of fact,
Gary Gygax, they took all of
Oh,
their
yeah.
stuff from
it's
what
funny
came
you
before.
mentioned that. I've got my white box set back there. It's a third print.
Okay.
That's the last print that was available. It still mentions hobbits and ents.
Mm.
After that, just like the deities and demigods, they had to go.
What did they change Hobbit to?
Hobbits are halflings,
Halflings. Yeah, that's
And then
right.
and ents are treants. Yeah.
How about
they had
that?
they had to switch it
So
up
they
a
took
little.
whatever they could from everything.
Of course.
But who hasn't all the way
Right.
back?
It's-
Yeah.
Everything's inspired by something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
I like Kellic's robe. It reminds me of Manos' Hands of Fate.
Absolutely. I made that joke earlier.
Look at the black.
The two of them
and
in the
the
robes
red.
together.
Yeah.
So eventually, then when I was in high school, in 9th grade, we had to read a short story. And I hope I don't butcher it, but I'm pretty sure it's called The Very Old Man with Enormous Wings. And it's basically this story of like an angel gets found on Earth and they like put him in this like chicken coop.
Oh, Nicolas Cage starred in that movie.
Did he?
Meg Ryan.
So
City of
anyway,
Angels.
we had to read this short story and we had to do
Give
some sort
up
of a
forever.
It took me all my. He doesn't know me that well. Half of what I say is bullshit. Just so you know.
we had to do
Half?
some sort of group project
Half.
thing. But I was like, this is going to be a mess. You know how group projects work in school. Like,
Yeah,
Were
one-
you the kid
one
that
person
did all
does
the
it.
work?
I always was. So I
Okay,
just
me
took it
too.
upon myself to not even like involve the other kids. Like I went home from school that day and I had just recently started playing around with stop motion animation with a VHS camera.
Oh my God.
But like you have to hit play and hit stop
immediately.
Play,
almost
stop,
immediately.
play, stop.
Right. So I created a semi stop motion animation, semi just like narrating to toys, and I retold the story, but I rubber banded Ace Duck's wings to the wizard to have this angel, this old
Yes.
man with
I
wings.
want
I
one
want
of those now.
I want to see this.
I want to recreate that.
I wish I
and
had
put
that
it-
tape.
Oh,
You
Kevin.
need to recreate that figure.
Recreate it.
and put it on
Yeah.
one of these shelves.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
That
Yes.
is.
So that was my 9th grade project, and I just took it in and I just said to the kids, "You wrote it, you proofread it, I made the video, we're done," and just like turned it in.
A.
Yep.
A.
Done.
A plus.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I need to see that figure now, Kevin. You have to make that happen.
All right. I dig out my
Ace Duck Ringle Run.
I never mixed D&D stuff with school really at all. I was really nerdy in school and always writing and stuff, but I never, because when I'm a little older than you, I think, it was still like devil stuff.
I went to Catholic school. It was,
yeah, forget it for you.
We played after school. We were the kids who played, like, we had the graph paper and drew the maps on the graph paper.
Yeah.
And that's how we imagined it. Now we don't really need that. It's nice to have little things.
A lot of people like having like
You say that,
dungeon
but
tiles and
yeah, when we
miniatures
play,
and-
we have a hexagonal map
No, we
that
have
we
a-
dry erase.
Oh, yeah,
and
we do
minis.
that. Yeah, no, it's almost the same. It's just a larger scale.
I never played with minis as a kid.
I feel like people
we
are
have
falling
them.
with that stuff more now than they
Yeah.
used to.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It brings you into it.
It's
And
so
it's-
readily available though.
It
too
is,
now.
that's
Like,
exactly
when
it.
you're a
But
kid,
I
you
love
can't
being in
afford buying all
character.
the-
No, you
the
gotta-
minis.
Right, you
You just draw it.
Everything we had mom made, you know what I mean? Like our costumes, all that stuff. Now you can go to Walmart and buy miniatures,
costumes.
literally.
We don't trust. Oh, like not for D&D.
So our big thing when I was a kid, every year, the Saturday after Halloween, because then everything was on clearance, we would have what we called the dungeon party. And we
Okay.
would play D&D from like 7 o'clock at night until like 5 o'clock the next day. We would just play and play. And it was always like a one shot, and we'd always dress up, and it was like our Halloween party. Best memories. It was just
and have all the leftover candy.
exactly all the clearance decorations and candy. They were on clearance.
So in our most recent, we still play second edition,
Okay.
which is
I only collect second edition and earlier D&D stuff.
because
Gotcha.
for one of the reasons
That's
we
where
only
my
play is because we grew
nostalgia
up
is.
playing in nostalgia. But another reason we play is because her library is so vast. To go out and to play
Buy
fifth
all new
and to
books?
buy all new books is
Forget it.
ridiculous. She has almost everything.
Yeah.
So right now I'm playing a,
Yourself. Justin is playing himself.
I'm playing a
Dwarven bard?
Dwarven bard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then my partner is a gnome bard. And he's my friend. He's one of my best friends, George.
Okay.
And we call ourselves the Half Notes because we're short.
That's their.
but
Nice.
Yeah.
but I bring my guitar.
Yes.
And we write actual songs that we're
So
playing. and
my
the thing.
sister and I co-DM this game
Yeah.
that he's describing,
Okay.
and they do get extra experience points for actually singing their music.
Nice.
Yeah, so we do all kinds of extracurricular stuff and singing
makes it fun,
character.
though, yeah.
It makes it so much fun.
It is a lot of fun. I can't listen. I roll my eyes and stuff, but it's fun.
Oh, I make a roar.
Yeah.
All the time.
It is a good time.
My first Dungeons and Dragons character, who I played for years as a kid, was a samurai. He was like a fighter, but he looked like a samurai. And I literally had the Budo G.I. Joe action figure next to me as I drew the character on
Nice.
my little model sheet.
Top knot.
Yep.
So what's funny is younger, I always wanted to play like tough fighters. And,
Yep.
But now I'm older. I'm like, no, I want to play somebody fun and goofy.
It's cool to have other abilities than just
Yes.
like fighting.
Yeah.
My
Well, you
f-
develop more of a personality. as you get
Yes.
older.
My favorite character was a druid, a female druid, a half elf character. And I've played her from level like 0 all the way up to level like 20. So she's me basically. I don't know if your samurai is you, but she's
Not
kind
really,
of like
Funny you talk about Budo.
she's kind of like my version of myself.
Budo and doing school projects with toys. Back to G.I. Joe. All roads lead to G.I. Joe.
They do.
Well,
They
G.I.
do.
Joe was my life as a kid.
Yeah.
Completely. I almost cried talking to Ron. I had talked to Larry a bunch of times, and Larry's very stoic.
Yeah.
So is Ron. Ron's like
Oh,
Wilford
stop.
Brimley. But like the first time I ever met Larry, I was like, man, I just want to thank you for my childhood. But saying that to a guy who, when they did this job, they didn't think they were ever going to be at conventions
No.
having all these man babies coming up to them saying thank you for my childhood.
Man babies.
It's got to be weird on their end to be hearing that.
For sure.
So I said to Ron, I did the explanation. And I said almost the same thing I said to Larry. I said, listen, the toys were more to me than toys. They bridged a gap with me and my father, who was ex-military. And man, I was all choked up saying it, and I was like, I don't want to lay this heavy thing
I
on
know
this guy.
you don't know this, but I actually videoed you talking to
Oh
him.
my God. that was- But then I talked to his son, Tristan, who was there, who was like, his handler. And I said, your dad never thought back in the 80s when he was designing these figures that these people were going to be coming up and getting things signed at a convention. He was like, no way. Nah. Did any of them ever think they were touching the lives of all these people? So that's my story about G.I. Joe was my life as a kid. to get back to
to bring it back around to D&D, I got to meet Larry Elmore and Jeff Easley a few years ago because of our friend Brian Stillman at a convention. And I did, D&D was my G.I. Joe. You know, I played with My Little Ponies and I love My Little Ponies, but my childhood was D&D.
And it also, not to get too deep, it was your connection with your father.
Yeah, my sister too, but yeah,
your sister, yeah.
A lot of my books were his when I was younger. But I met Larry Elmore and I'm like trying not to freak out. Like I'm trying to be cool. I have him sign my stuff.
Iconic art.
All that. I mean, he's my favorite artist of all time.
It's funny, like all these guys, the Ron Rudats and the Larry Hamas and
they had no idea.
Larry Elmores.
He was just doing a job. He was painting paintings and having fun doing it, but he never expected 30 years later.
It was a job these guys were doing and creating these things that meant they didn't know that they were going to mean so much to us that we'd be sitting here 40 years later.
Yeah. I said 30
and then people
years.
watching us talk about it, enjoying and joining in the conversation. You know, everybody watching this, or a lot of people watching this, probably have the same things about different. It's crazy how this turned into like
you were saying about talking to Larry about your childhood and things like that. When I met Larry for the first time, my entire family went to a JoeCon with me. And it was sort of by accident.
Were they standing around you?
Yeah. So we were going to visit my grandparents in Florida, and I happened to realize we're going to be in Florida the same weekend as JoeCon.
Oh.
And my
the Disney World one.
Yeah, and my grandparents live like an hour north of Disney World.
Yep.
And I was like, once it was all, like I was not going to put any pressure on my parents. And I was an adult. I mean, I was probably in college.
Yeah, but you don't want to.
But I don't want to put any pressure on this trip. This is a family trip. But after everything was set, everything is booked, and that's when we're going. It's not like I'm influencing, like, let's go this weekend. I said to my dad.
I'd have been like, no, we're going this weekend.
I just let it all happen, and I said to my dad, is there any way somebody can drop me off for a half a day at this show? And by that point in time, everybody was like a little bit tired of being cooped up at Grandma and Grandpa's house. So everyone decided they were going.
Does everyone's Grandma and Grandpa live in Florida?
Probably.
I think it's a thing.
So my entire family goes, and I met Larry Hammer for the first time, and I had packed one of the little Star Comics reprints of G.I. Joe 1 to get signed. And I was talking to him about how much it meant to me, and my mom steps in, and she's like, I have to thank you. My son learned how to read because of your comics.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I struggled to learn how to read. I actually went through first grade twice.
But you wanted to read those comics. That's awesome.
And so that was such a big deal. So like I went through first grade the first time without glasses.
Yeah.
They like figured out the tail end, like, oh, he has a vision issue.
Yeah,
so that
same
was
with me,
part
but
of
that
it.
was before, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was part of it and other issues too.
Yep.
And so like my mom like really just added the extra weight.
And it's something you wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have been like,
yes.
But I'm sure he reacted to that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just a cool thing. And think of how many other kids they've done that for.
Well, think about people have said that to him now.
Right.
So, same kind of New York Comic Con. I am the G.I. Joe guy of this relationship. She didn't grow up with G.I. Joe. Right. But we get together and she enjoys cosplaying.
I did not grow up with G.I. Joe.
But you knew what G.I. Joe was. You didn't really play
with it. It wasn't my thing.
Right. But, we get together and she's a cosplayer and she's like, well, I like the Baroness is awesome. I want to cosplay the Baroness. It lends itself to you. So we go to New York Comic Con. Larry's there. First time I meet him. I lay out this whole, oh my God, I wasn't crying, but I was choked up. And it was a big moment because you realize that this guy did what he did. You know what I mean? And she's in her Baroness costume and he's like, can I get a picture with her? I'm like, okay, cool. He takes a picture with her. I take a picture with him, over the years, we develop a relationship, right? Which, luckily enough,
tell the real story. We went home that night, and I friended Larry on MySpace. And he remembered me as the Baroness lady from earlier in the day.
Yeah. Not that he's creepy, but yes, he remembered.
He's not.
It makes an impression when
she
someone's
made
in a
an
costume.
impression.
Yeah.
And that just started our friendship with Larry.
Flash forward a few years, he's
we own
been
a store.
to the store,
Yeah.
and we've hung out, and every time we see him at con, we've spent time, we've gone to dinner, all kinds of stuff. I feel blessed. That
Larry
I
Hama is
call
one of
Larry
my
Hama
favorite
friend.
people on this planet.
We get to the con, last time we went to a convention, he's at the Super Jersey, he's setting up.
And we're
He
sponsoring
walks
Joe
up
Rowe.
with his bag, and he's got his hat and sunglasses on it. Hey, Justin.
His con uniform.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, where's Penelope? I'm like, you mother. Hey,
Sorry.
man, what about me?
Yeah, I mean, you're cute.
Aren't I? Who am I?
You're okay. You're
So,
good.
it's
He
funny.
likes you too, Justin. Don't
No,
worry.
I know he likes me.
Listen,
He
it's
likes
fine.
me.
No.
Sure.
But anyway, we're trying to talk about D&D.
Oh, well, I was talking about Ron. What was I doing?
I don't know. You went off on a tangent about Ron, and I brought it back around talking about Larry and Jeff.
Well, I was talking about how you made a project with Joe with toys at school, and I went to a Catholic school, and we had to make a like a diorama about something. I forget specifically about with a Bible thing, and I remember my mom helping me. It was the first diorama I ever made. Now Diamond Comics, I have an award at the store for a diorama we built.
Firepoint,
right, but this is the first
award-winning.
diorama I ever built. Was I took, and you said Budo. I had Budo and like who has beards, Outback, and
Snow Job.
no, because he has the hood on.
Yeah.
And Shipwreck.
Okay.
And dressed them as like the three wise men, and made a. They weren't the wise men. They were like. It was the mountain with the Moses with the stones, and I made a diorama with those guys and had them dressed as that, and that's all I wanted.
Almost related to that, actually. My friends, the guy that got me into D&D, his mom did a lot with their church group and like doing the kids' activities, and they built this like paper mache Mount Sinai and some other, I don't even remember, maybe the Dead Sea or something like that. These little models, and then later on when they were done with them, we brought them home and put our models on, like, and did like awesome role play stuff with it. You know,
Mom was always making stuff. We were always doing dioramas and projects. That's just how.
That's how you guys rolled.
We were a house of imagination, and the creativity, the artisticness, and D&D. I feel like that all went together. We didn't have a lot of money, but I had a great childhood because of stuff like that. D&D, imagination, being creative, all that.
Hey, our childhoods, I can't speak for everybody, but that's why we get emotional when we meet people like these people. Our childhoods were these golden years where the stress of life isn't on us, and we're having our best years and enjoying. My best friends were those toys, which is why, it's hard to convey that to the person who created those toys.
Right.
So it's personal for you. It's not, they don't share it as personal for them. So
for them, it was a job.
Sometimes
and
I feel
they appreciate it, but
sometimes I feel like, man, it's pretty heavy people laying that on them. It's got to be kind of weird on their end of things.
It definitely is like a strange thing, and you hear about it from like people that go to cons, even people that just are like actors. The guy that played Jason the Red Ranger, he was like a paramedic, not in the military, but like working overseas, where in some conflict areas, and he always tells a story about like he was kind of wrapping up that time, and Walter, who played Zach, the Black Ranger, told him, dude, you have to, when you come back, you have to come to a con with me. He goes, you can't imagine how many people tell me that like I got them through a hard thing, or I made their life better, or I influenced their whole life. He goes, you got to experience this. And then the guy, Austin played Jason. He's like, I went to my first show, and it's like insane. Like, you can't even imagine the impact you had when you were 18 years old doing karate against a rubber monster.
A goofy job
right.
that you're probably laughing about.
It's crazy.
It's what influences us as kids, and we grew up with this stuff.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. Thanks for hanging on the peg with us. Is that where we're at?
Oh, well, wait,
Sure.
do you want to say it? I did the opening. Do you want to do the thanks for
Sure.
thing? Yeah, go ahead.
What camera?
Take your pick.
one.
You're in
There's
control.
three.
Hey, thanks for hanging on the peg with us.
See you next time.
Bye.